Greetings everyone and welcome. It's Sunday once more, which means it's time for another episode of the Captain's Table. To recap last week's episode, I had finished my second week at my new job and things were looking on the up and up. I was going in for some unplanned overtime to make sure that a unit was completed for a move-in. And I was interested to see how the next week would play out, considering there was supposed to be a new person starting on Monday. And I did get clarification from my supervisor that that person was in fact supposed to be my superior, directly being the assistant supervisor at the property. Well, Monday rolled around and that guy actually never showed up, so as a result of him being a no-show yet again, now he did call, made an excuse, made several excuses actually over the 2-week period, I later found out, but as a result of him not showing up for a second week in a row, my supervisor basically decided he had had enough of this guy and wanted to start looking for an alternative. Which meant on Tuesday when I came into work, I basically informed my supervisor, after hearing about the situation, that he should just promote me to the position because I could always use a promotion and a pay raise. He did not immediately reject that idea. In fact, he thought it was a pretty reasonable idea, especially considering I had been there for 2 weeks and was doing pretty well. Now, I did get called into the manager's office on Wednesday, and considering the last time this happened, I was kind of a little apprehensive about going down there. Fortunately for me, and fortunately for them, it turned out all they really wanted to do was to ask me how I was holding up, how I was finding the property, because apparently in the past, in spite of the incredibly reasonable pay, in fact I consider it to be kind of on the high end for the position that I work, they have had people actually quit this location after just 2 weeks on the job. Not even 2 weeks in some cases, just walked right off. So they wanted to make sure that that wasn't going to be the case with me. And I, of course, assured them that that wasn't, because as far as I'm concerned, this location and this job is actually incredibly easy comparison to some of the other locations that I've had the fortune or misfortune of working. Now, for those of you who follow me on Facebook, will have gotten kind of, sort of, an update this week regarding why there were so few videos on my YouTube channel this week. And for those of you who don't follow, well, you're probably wondering why. And the answer is, I have just been incredibly exhausted. Part of it has to do with still getting used to the schedule and trying to force myself to find the time at the end of my day, or to force myself at the beginning of the day to not play games and instead do a YouTube video. And I'm finding that to be a little difficult to manage. Additionally, as it turned out this week, at the very beginning of this week, my shoulder ended up hurting pretty significantly. It started impacting my ability to do my job, which, of course, caused some pretty large concerns on my end, especially only having been there for 2 weeks. Now, the shoulder situation, as best as I can figure out, was basically just an overuse injury. I effectively inflamed the tendons and the muscular structure in that area, and so it was causing me pain every time I lifted my arm out and away above the shoulder level. The good news, however, is taking plenty of Tylenol and ibuprofen helped reduce the pain and the swelling, and I let my supervisor know what was going on right at the beginning of the week, and he was more than accommodating. He took care of the heavier lifting that week in spite of his own injury, and allowed me to focus on the lighter tasks and keep my arm, well, more or less isolated from heavy actions that would exacerbate the situation. In my opinion, that's actually a really, really big green flag that the place you're working at is a good place to work at. If the supervisor comes in and instead of saying, well, suck it up or tough it out, like certain other supervisors I've had in the past, he was more than willing to accommodate. And that worked out fine because by the time Friday rolled around, Arm was feeling much better and I was able to get back in and actually assist him with some of the tasks that needed to be done that mainly involved moving of the trash dumpsters around, which is probably where the overwork injury came from in the first place. I was also informed, and keep this kind of on the hush-hush, if you will, that my supervisor has something in the works. Since the assistant manager that they had interviewed and effectively offered a position at the same time as me did not ultimately start working at the location, they have found themselves in a bit of a bind, still technically being one person short who's capable of performing maintenance tasks, work orders, and unit turns, and not just the cleaning on the weekends. Because of my suggestion earlier in the week, my supervisor has basically finagled it so that, as he puts it, either I'm getting a promotion sometime in the next couple of weeks, which would certainly be nice, and assuming the assistant supervisor role, or whoever they hire is going to come in below me at the tech level. So I'll basically be the senior tech. And really, in that case, it's just going to be a, title promotion as opposed to an actual legitimate promotion. Either way, it's good for me.
My mind.
And I think it's really good for the situation at the property, because if they tried to hire an assistant supervisor at this point, given that my current supervisor has to go in for a knee surgery in a couple of weeks, it just would not end up turning out well, especially when you consider he's basically going to be out of work for a good 3 to 6 weeks while he recovers from that. On the pay-related front of things, I finally got paid for my unemployment from the state of Washington. They finally resolved my unemployment issue and issued that check out on Monday. Granted, it was, about a week later than I would have liked it and needed it, but I did get it. It was apparently, and I think I mentioned this last week, less than I was hoping for because I missed a week of filing for unemployment. Still though, after taxes, it came out to something like $650, and hey, I'm not going to scoff at $650. I also got my first paycheck from my new job, and the massive increase in that check is still not quite hitting home for me. I'm still thinking about my old pay scale, and I don't think it's really going to fully hit home for me about this increase in this change until the next paycheck, when I'm at the end of the month going into the next month and I have not only 1 month's rent but effectively 2 full months rent plus utilities and minimum payments on everything. And speaking of rent situations, I'm now actively looking for a new apartment. Briefly considered with the idea of buying something and decided I would take a look at what was available. Now, Seattle real estate is incredibly expensive, and there was no way in hell I was buying a house. But if you look in the right spots and you're willing to move to one of the suburbs, in my case it would be Tequila, which is a little bit south, you can find some pretty reasonably priced condos. Now they're older and they're definitely in need of a new coat of paint, probably some new flooring, definitely new counters and appliances, but new counters and appliances are things that you can put in later. New flooring you can usually put in reasonably quickly, and paint is easy enough. And the prices for a 2-bedroom aren't terrible. They're actually doable based on the mortgage rates right now. I could easily afford it, plus the HOA fees and the property taxes. Which got me kind of excited for the prospect of potentially buying. And then I talked to a real estate friend of mine and realized that there was no way in hell I could do that because I needed at least $14,000 saved up, just straight saved up, to afford the minimum down payment for most of the first-time homebuyer loans and the closing costs. So that's not going to be happening this year, probably not even next year. In fact, at the rate I'm going, probably not for the next 5 years. But there's always hope. I mean, how much is the lottery up to?
I've almost got this. Just keep back.
So, because I'm not able to buy, I'm looking to rent, and unfortunately, a lot of the places I'm looking either have the shittiest reviews, which is basically the review I'm leaving for the current place, when I do finally leave, or are absurdly far away. Or they have red flags in their postings that make me think that I might not want to go there or give them money, just in case it's not actually a legit posting. Still though, I am optimistic that I'll find something. I still have till the end of May to technically move out, so, you know, while I would like to move out now, it would certainly be nice to be able to do that. It isn't a critical priority at this point, and I can kind of sit back and wait and see what I can find. However, because I know I'm going to be moving, I have begun the process of packing. And so that is going to take up a little bit of my time on my weekends and my home time or downtime anyway. That's it for this week's episode of The Captain's Table. If you liked it, hit the like button. Leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. Let me know what's going on in your life. Let me know if you've got any tips, tricks, or otherwise good advice about my situation, or well wishes, of course, are always welcome. And as always, I'll see you next time. This is Captain Rye, signing off.
Excellent. With my mental defenses stabilized, we should have additional